All right, let this special open meeting of the Robertson Fire Protection District come to order. This meeting is being held in person and on Zoom. There will be no public speaking this evening. This is a special open meeting to do negotiations with the IAFF, the local 2665, regarding the contract. Let's go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to get started.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Director Stevie, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. A roll call.
Okay, Director Guyton,
Here.
Director Field,
Here.
Director Stevie, here.
And then make note of Chief Brown, Assistant Chief Long, and Mr. Duffy, Mr. Anderson, and Mr. Herman, and Mr. Thank you.
Mr. Herman here.
I said his name.
Oh, gee.
All right. So for everyone, I'm just going to start by explaining why we're here. So originally, the firefighter paramedics had the employees had a contract between the Robertson Fire Protection District and the local 2665. A new contract was negotiated prior to the recall election. It was then accepted and signed the night before the recall election. As a result, the board of directors had to file suit due to multiple violations to the Sunshine Law, as well as Chapter 43270, which says you cannot tie the hands of a future board. Basically, you cannot sign contracts on your way out the door to prevent change. So as a result, we are here today to begin the process of negotiating a new collective bargaining agreement. So we have two things we're going to discuss. The first thing is the board of directors have agreed to follow, and we have been actually following the old collective bargaining agreement from before. We've been following it, but we want to make it a little bit more cemented. We want to make it more, yes. So we're signing a side agreement that says that we are going to follow it. However, there are certain things that are legally questionable, as well as they impede on management rights. So we're going to have that discussion about what should be in the side letter, in the side agreement moving forward. In addition to that, we have a protocol agreement that we are going to finalize that discusses how negotiations are going to take place, how we're going to do this, so that each party understands the process. We have decided to do this live to the public because we want to hold not only, ourselves accountable, but we need everyone to know exactly where their money is going. And, if the public doesn't like what we do, we can hear from them. So that's why we've done this. So, gentlemen, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Matt Anderson, I'm the shop steward and time chief for Robertson. The chief negotiator, if you will.
Okay.
Will Herman, assistant shop steward and private with Robertson.
John Duffy, I'm with the local 2665. I'm their second district VP, which covers this area.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. All right, so I think what we'll do, I know I gave you guys like kind of a rundown of the articles that we kind of want to discuss here. So I figure we will just go one by one. For the public, if you want to follow along, we have collective bargaining agreements for you to follow article by article. If you're at home, if you go to Robertson Fire Protection District's webpage, there under the event posting, under news on the homepage, you can click on this event and you can follow the collective bargaining agreement at home. So as we go through this. All right. So we'll just start from the top and go down. Does that work? All right, let's see here. Start with Article 6. All right, the substance abuse policy. So we take just issue with the last line of this policy, where it says the Labor Management Committee will be responsible for maintaining a drug and alcohol policy for the district and agree on future changes to this policy. Now, we have an issue with that because we feel that management should have the authority to put in place a drug and alcohol policy for our employees. We do not feel like a committee comprised of employees should be policing themselves on how drug and alcohol policies should be handled. So all we're asking is that we add that you can recommend. So we can leave it, but just recommend.
Yeah, the rewrite would be Labor Management Committee may recommend changes to the drug and alcohol policy to the administration and board of directors.
Are we okay with that change?
We're not gonna agree to anything yet.
Okay.
I mean, since this is the first time we're seeing any of this.
Sure.
We'd like to kind of just run through it, see where we're all at. Give us 5 to 10 minutes to talk
That's
and then
fine.
come in
Oh.
and then we can start.
That sounds,
And actually, what I thought we could do is the basement downstairs is a private room.
Mhm.
If you at any point would like to go and talk and confer, you can go downstairs and it's completely private for you. And then for us, we will just go to the office. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds
Perfect,
perfect.
sounds good.
All right. So that is that one. Director CB, do you want to take? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that last line one more time?
okay, the last line would read, the Labor Management Committee may recommend changes to the drug and alcohol policy to the administration and board of directors.
Is it possible when we're finished to have a copy of all of the rewrites?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
The only thing I have a couple extra notes, so I would just need to do a couple changes, but I can do that quickly before printing it off for you.
Thank you. Okay.
Director CB?
Are we ready for the next one?
Yes.
Okay, so, on Article 7, union representation. We're gonna remove that last line. Because we don't feel it's necessary to attend all closed board, meetings. However, if there is a, for example, a personnel issue where, a disciplinary action needs to be taken and the person is in, the board meeting in order to receive such disciplinary action or to be talked to about it, absolutely, shop steward will be told ahead of time, so that you can be their union representation within that meeting with that, that person that's being disciplined.
Yeah.
So I don't have a rewrite for that right now, but it is basically
I know where
taking out
you're
that
going.
last.
Yeah.
Take out that last line. It would just need to be taken out altogether. And if we needed to write in a line that says union representation may be present in the case of personnel disciplinary action, then we can do that.
Right. Moving forward. All right, we're gonna go to Article 10. So the committee system. Okay, so we're looking at a rewrite on the second paragraph, second sentence. Right here, let's see here, second paragraph, second sentence. The purpose of these committees shall include, but not be limited to, define the short and long-term goals of the district, address labor management issues, approval of large item purchases, equipment, staffing, policy development. Basically, what we're asking is just to add that you recommend to us. That no final decision is made by any committee, because ultimately the board and the administration have the right to make the final decision on what is best for the district. And once again, we feel, you know, employees, battalion staff may not know what our budget looks like. They may not know some of these details that are going on behind the scenes. So it'd be really difficult to have our employees be making decisions for the district, rather than just recommending them and then we work it out together.
Mhm.
In addition to that, in the committee, the way the committee system is, it says that we are to maintain a planning committee, a labor management committee, and a budget committee. So these are the committees that are listed in the CBA. But when I was when interim chief Peoples was helping me out, he sent me a whole list of all the committees. And what we actually have is a planning committee. We don't have a budget committee. We have a labor management committee, standard operating guidelines, equipment truck, PR, benefit pension grants, and EMS safety. So those are more committees, and and I'm going to be completely honest, I'm okay with committees. I think they're great because I think you guys coming up with plans and really helping be a part of how this district grows is great. But I just think they just need a little bit more structure. So one problem discussing this with some people is that you have even numbers of people in your committee. So it makes it difficult to vote. And also there's so many cooks in the kitchen. The planning committee has 11 people. The truck equipment has 10. We were seeing if you could just limit it to an odd number of people,
Like 3 to 7.
3 to
members.
7, because I think it would be just more efficient for you guys. But that is up to you ultimately. But the biggest thing is we want to see voting going on. We want to see decisions to where it's like a functioning committee. And in addition to that, we feel you should be keeping meeting minutes, because then that way, when you come to us and say, this is what we discussed, this is what went on,
There's a record of it.
There's a record of it, and we can see exactly like what was discussed, who had what ideas, things like that. I know it's a lot to ask, but this is more a benefit for you. And then also just when you come to us with recommendations, we can really know where you're coming from.
We also wanted to discuss maybe, first of all, the benefit pensions and grants committee is going to be replaced by the pension board of trustees that we're trying to get together at the moment. You guys are submitting names, and then they're going to be decided upon by the chief.
Which is covered by law. Like
Yes.
That's actually a statute.
But we think having a grants committee, one that's just for grants, is a great idea, because obviously we have lots of grants and things that would be great if we had a committee that was committed to just finding free money
Sure.
for us. So that's, so in place of that benefits, pension, grants, we're gonna have the board of trustees and then maybe just a grants committee, if that's okay.
And just to give you a little background real quick, and I know you look like you want to say something, so I'll
I
let
just
you.
have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, of all the committees that were mentioned, are there any that you want to discontinue?
Not
Well,
necessarily.
just the budget committee, only because we don't have it. And really, at the end of the day, we should be handling the budget.
So we had approval. It was never established, but it's something that I feel we need to, is adding a training committee.
Yes,
to that
actually,
list.
we talked
I
about
think,
that.
yes, we talked about having a training
We had
committee.
established it, and we had a sign-up sheet. It kind of,
It fell through.
it felt, but
Okay.
I would love to.
And these are the kinds of things, and this is why we like the committee. But that's also why we want to rewrite it to say recommend. It's because I really think having the members involved specifically in the development of things like the training program, in the development of all these, and have those ideas come forward, because that's the best way to get new ideas, to get new development. And we want people to feel invested in how the department is moving forward. But it does need to be clear, at least through the CBA, that the final decisions are with the administration and the board.
Thank you for bringing up the training
Yes.
committee, because that was one thing I definitely wanted to add. Now, I just want to give you a little context to also why I'm recommending adding the meeting minutes as well as the voting and everything, is because, I spoke to someone who helps manage as part of the management company for the retirement plans. And he told me that, these meetings are very well attended. He would show up, there would be 11 to 15 people. And he would explain all these things that would help all of you grow your retirement better. But then he would say, well, are we going to vote on this? And then no vote would occur. And he said that he felt as if you guys were hindering yourselves, mostly just because there was too many ideas, too many conflicting things. And then no one had the ability to vote because it wasn't set up. So this is more, I'm honestly telling you this because I think this would benefit you guys. And then also, when I asked Paul Peebles for, Fire Marshal Peebles for some meeting minutes, he just sent me an email chain, and it was very hard to decipher like what actually happened or was talked about, as far as like what you guys wanted for benefits. So it's a recommendation. I highly recommend it, but you know, ultimately you're in charge of your committees. Leave?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, go for it, Director.
Okay, so the next one covers 4 different articles. The 14, 15, 16, and 17, it has to do with your leave, emergency leave, funeral leave, jury and court leave, and vacation leave. I don't feel like people take bereavement leave or take vacation leave so that they can be called in for overtime. And in fact, I've never heard of a company ever calling someone when they're on bereavement leave and saying, would you like to work some overtime? Okay, but that just happened, like literally just happened. Okay, and it's an abuse of the leave policy. So I think what needs to be added in there is, once leave is scheduled, an employee cannot be called for or accept overtime of any kind by a battalion chief. So in the case of an emergency, the assistant chief or fire chief may make an exception. So if there's a true emergency where we're like, we have no option but to call so-and-so in, I know they're on vacation, but hey, COVID's a great example. We've got 8 guys down with COVID right now. And so-and-so took leave and he's the only option left of people to call to come in and cover this shift. I think that's when the battalion chief needs to call Assistant Chief Long or Assistant Chief Brown and say, hey, we're in a pickle here. I don't have another choice. There's nobody else to call. And they say, all right, I'll give them a call. And that's when, you know, it's coming from the head, you know, there was no other choice but to call that person in from the vacation that they were expecting to be on. Okay, that's, and that's all for those ones. And I don't know if we need to add that into every one or how that wording would work exactly, but.
Any questions? All right. Director CV, Article 31.
Deferred compensation, Article 31. Sorry, guys. Lost my place there. Okay. We would like to take out the last 2 lines that say all actions or changes to the plan will be agreed upon by the Pension and Benefits Committee and Planning Committee. Furthermore, there must be a majority vote of the shop on all changes to the current plan. Again, it's just a management issue.
It's just because we've changed it to the committee's recommending. So again,
if you would like to word it in there that the committees may make recommendations, we can add that wording in. But I don't think that we can say that it all has to be approved by the committee.
Article 34, this kind of goes along the same lines as far as with the VIVA. It says all actions and changes will be planned upon by the Pension and Benefits Committee and Planning Committee. Again, that's a recommendation. However, the issue with the VIVA is I would like to put a pause on that until I have the time, we have the time to contact a pension lawyer. Because I have some concerns about how it's been abused in the past. We all know there was a former chief who worked here for 8 years, who had $121,000 put into his VIVA account for accrued sick time. And that just feels like an abuse. Now, I know that obviously not everyone may be abusing it, but until we can define this by a lawyer, I'm very uncomfortable paying it out. And it's something that once we do have it figured out, anyone on back pay who didn't get it from before, we can go back and we can make them whole. So I just want to put a pause on that until we can really define what the laws are. And that's it.
Did we say we're still gonna do the 300, right?
Yes, the 300 into your accounts, of course.
So that first line.
Yeah.
That says the employer agrees to set up the VIVA account for all active employees at the rate of $300 per year per employee that stage.
Yes, and but everything after that, I just want to consult a lawyer. All right, Director Seavey, any questions so far? Okay, Director Seavey?
Okay, Article 38. Overtime. We want to rewrite on the third paragraph, third sentence. That says declining overtime will result in the employee being moved to the bottom of the call list. From what we understand, there may or may not be some abuses where employees don't answer their phone or decline or whatever until they're into forced overtime, which then gives them, and declining doesn't put them at the bottom of the list. So there's no incentive really to accept overtime in the first pass. Does that make sense? So then they decline until they're forced and then they get paid double time. Isn't that the way that works? Then they get paid double time because they're forced. So it appears to be that there's a bit of a system set up that says, we can rig this to where we get paid double time instead of normal overtime. And there's shouldn't be an incentive to do stuff like that. You should either want to take the overtime or not.
So just clarifying, we want to remove declining overtime will not be held against the employee, but the employee will remain in their current place on the list.
Correct. To replace it with declining overtime will result in the employee being moved to the bottom of the call list.
So when the call, because our current call list is based on hours worked,
Okay.
or hours of overtime worked. So how is the call, will it then be established just by seniority? Is that how it'll start? Yes. Okay. Just, and then that's the fairest way. And then it just kind of triples and moves from there.
So if you were to decline overtime on the overtime shift, you would still have that 24-hour period added to your hours worked to determine where you're at on the list.
Wait, what?
So the way we track overtime is in an Excel spreadsheet. And what we do is we have your hire date and we have the amount of overtime that you've worked for the calendar year. We sort it based on those two factors. So what it does is it puts the most senior person with the least amount of overtime at the top of the list.
Okay.
When you're added, when you take 24 hours of overtime, we add that to the total tally and then adjust it going forward, right?
Okay, this guy at the top of the list gets the call and says, we need you to come in for overtime.
Correct.
He says, I can't do it.
So
He goes from there to the bottom of it. That's it.
I think on the callback, I don't think you permanently go to the bottom. of
Yes,
it.
no,
that's
not
so what I
talked about.
what I think.
It's this for this call. So what happens is you guys go through your list and you call guy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everybody denies it. Now you go back to guy 1 or, whatever. Guy 1, or maybe some people didn't answer or something like that. But guy 1 said, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, now he's at the bottom. You don't call him next.
You call
Like when
everybody
you're,
else.
you call through the people who.
Okay, so for every single time you need someone to come in for overtime, you should take the list you have and have that be that list for that one time you need overtime. Every list will be different every single time. You start with that list, and technically, if everyone declines it, then
it starts over at the top.
then it will go to double overtime, of course.
Right.
Because everyone who's moved to the list at the bottom, then you're back to the top of it. It just repeats itself, and then now you are calling and saying, "Hey, come in, mandatory
forced.
overtime."
You're
I
for
was just gonna ask you, were you referring to the mandatory aspect of it?
I'm just
Because
trying,
obviously, once you've exhausted the list, then mandatory would kick in.
so calling for overtime goes from the top down,
Right.
mandatory goes from the
Bottom up, correct.
So what we do is we start calling the most senior person with the least amount of hours. And the Excel spreadsheet is constantly adjusted. So we do have a new sheet every time we call for overtime based on the most current number.
Well, then that's perfect, because then the person with the least amount of hours and will end up at the top again.
Right.
Yeah, so then that will be perfect.
Yep.
I don't know your system, but you're talking about hours as well, so I could be wrong here, but it sounds a lot like how we do it, but my question would be then, they want them to go to the bottom of the list. Theoretically, say Will's most senior and has the least amount of hours, and then me, and then Matt, but the hour difference is multiple days. So now it's not just an hour thing, because theoretically, Will says no, and you say, okay, well, we're charging you 24 hours. That's not gonna necessarily pop him to the very bottom of the list. You know, he may just drop down 1 or 2 spots.
Yeah, why would we charge them?
So I feel like there may be, I get where you're going with it,
Mhm.
but I think,
Can we think of a way then
Theo.
where, here's what we're trying to avoid. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
you guys will have the better idea of how to do this. We're
You're
trying to avoid
the game.
abuse.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Understood.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Understood.
if we can have a way that it doesn't say, it won't be held against them. I mean, I hate to say that, but
If you
yeah,
decline it,
if you decline
it.
it, you
Right.
declined it. If you said, I don't want it, then somebody else should be able to pick it up,
Sure.
you know, and you shouldn't be rewarded then for getting top choice for that. Like, you shouldn't play a game to see if you can roll the dice and get that double overtime because you really wanted to come in, but
It just provides incentive to pick it up, to accept it the first time it's offered.
Would
Right.
we be willing to put a pin in this one?
Yes.
yes.
I will reach out to neighboring fire districts and departments and figure out how they do both their overtime call and their mandatory system.
I think that's a great.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Director CV.
All right, so I'm gonna talk about Article 41 and Article 44, the clothing allowance and the food allowance. At this time, we will agree to continue the $100 per month to purchase and maintain district uniforms. What we would like added in is that you need to turn in receipts for your items in order to receive that
And
compensation.
you'll
You know.
reimburse the amount on the receipts. So
Correct.
if you only are charge $800, you'll be
Mhm.
reimbursed $800. You do the whole 1,200, you get the whole 1,200. This is because this is a violation of tax law.
So is there going to be, I guess like standards set on what can be purchased and how often or anything like that?
Well, here, the way this reads,
Mhm.
and you can.
Oh, okay, well, yeah.
I'm
I see
saying,
that,
but you can see how this is problematic. If the district is providing you basically all of your uniforms, which I believe the district absolutely should do. Well, one could argue, what's the need for a clothing allowance to begin with? Now, you could also say t-shirts, socks, whatever, but do you need $1,200 in t-shirts, socks, and whatever? Just flat putting $1,200 in somebody's account is against tax law when you say that it's for a uniform allowance. Does that make sense?
This is one of the things we learned, that they taught us when we,
Went to the board training.
went to our board training, is actually there's quite a few contracts that have verbiage like this where you're just given money at the end of the year for an unknown thing to pay for. But technically, if the IRS were to come in and say, you're giving a uniform allowance, well, where's all the receipts and why are they getting more money than what they spent? Because technically, if we're just giving you cash, that could be used on anything. All we're asking, we'll reimburse you for all the clothing you get, up to $1,200. Just provide receipts, so if the IRS comes in, we're compliant.
I mean, it should reasonably match, right? What it is you need reasonably, right? I don't know that we're gonna pay out on a tuxedo, a $1,200 tuxedo.
I think there's specific things that.
I'm just
they-
saying, I'm just saying it should
Yeah.
reasonably match the purpose, right?
If that's the route we take and there are specific things, could we list those things?
I think so, because
Yeah,
I
we
think,
could.
I think like, for instance, what you're wearing right now is covered under the, under the umbrella of clothing allowance.
Okay,
And then like your obviously your uniform is gonna be like your,
Well, it says in here what we will furnish,
sure.
what we do furnish, and we have no problem with any of that verbiage because we do believe that the district should be furnishing you all of these items.
But I think defining what would, or even what wouldn't be covered would be the easiest for all of us.
I agree.
That way there's
Yeah,
no.
I like that.
Gotcha.
And inclusion and exclusion.
Yeah, I think what might be best if you guys get together with, the, the shop and say, what would we like covered? Under this, and then that way we know, exactly what we're covering and what is it, and then we'll come together and we'll agree on what should be covered and what shouldn't. The last thing, on there is we need you to turn in your receipts by December 1st for the sake of Suzette. Because it's gonna be a lot of receipts and, she's gonna have to take a month to go through those. Yes. We might get you paid.
Will that cause issues? Because if they're gonna turn them in December 1st, obviously, I understand she's got work to do with that. But usually it's year to year, so that means it's gonna be from like December 1st of like, say, 22 up to December 1st of 23, so you're gonna be crossing over years. Will that cause issues?
We thought about maybe, I don't know if this would be better if we just turn them in quarterly. And then then it's not so overwhelming. And then also you guys would get your money back sooner.
Yeah, like if you spent money in a quarter, a lot of places do it quarterly. This is actually a pretty typical policy for places that if they give you a uniform allowance, you turn in your receipts, they reimburse you.
There's actually one district, I looked at a couple of CBAs, and there's one district that will allow you to go to one specific place to get your stuff. They don't give you the option to go here or to go there. They give you the option to go to one place, and it's X amount of dollars per year. So I think this is a really good deal.
Sure. I just want to make sure that when it's all said and done, we have our I's dotted and T's crossed.
I agree.
Yeah.
The expectations are known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want you guys looking sharp. So
And then the thing for the food allowance, that at this time, we're okay with that $250 annually. But we appreciate a turn in of receipts.
again, it's
It's a tax law.
a tax law thing. So if the IRS comes in, we're covered. All right. Sick leave incentive, Article 42.
This one we'll hop around just a little bit. Sorry about that. It was just because the clothing and the food were kind of similar in nature. The last one.
So yes, the last line. The sick leave incentive, that basically people who lose, who miss a day, that then goes in a pot that's then split among the employees. We have a problem with that because
That doesn't incentivize the, or that doesn't help.
it
the
doesn't
employer.
benefit the
Yeah, at all.
employer, like, if you miss out on the incentive, you don't get, more money if you, I don't know.
Okay, so listen, this is the game that employers play, right? We're gonna dangle the carrot, and if you don't get the carrot, we get to keep the carrot. All right, that's the game the employers play. We're gonna give you guys a sick leave incentive, which means we're dangling the money out there and we're saying, if you don't miss, you get this incentive. If you do miss, you don't. We get to keep our money. So basically that last line that says, so employer, you don't get to keep any of your money no matter what. I kind of think that's defeats the purpose for both employer and employee. 3 people shouldn't get extra incentive just because they did what they were supposed to do you know, they got their incentive, right? They got their $1,000 or $2,000, whatever it is. They received their incentive because we said, if you don't miss, you get this. And if you do miss, you don't. But not like, but if you really don't miss, then you get a whole bunch extra. So I think fair is fair. We should keep anything that people aren't getting.
All right. Any questions so far? Any comments? Director CV, are we moving on to Article 50?
Okay, rules and regulations. Okay, basically, we're gonna scrap that in, and rewrite it to say, the administration and board of directors will allow the review of all policies prior to implementation. Simple. Any policies we're gonna make sure you guys have them and you can review them.
So we have a policy. We're not just going to pass it without talking to you. Okay, we're going to bring it to you and say, we think this policy, we can have a discussion, you know, is there something you don't like? Maybe there's something you think would make it better. And ultimately, that way, you know what's going on before it happens.
So what's getting, I'm sorry, so what's getting changed in that one? Or what do you guys?
Well, basically, it's gonna go out and then it's just going to say, the administration and board of directors will allow the review of all policies prior to implementation.
Okay.
Basically, it's just going to go to the whole shop and not the labor management committee.
Right,
Like,
and again, this is a management issue because the Article 50 makes it seem like, you know, they get to tell us what policies get approved. Right, of course, we want to consult and let you guys see things and hear your feedback, but if whether or not something gets passed, again, has to go back to administration and board.
All right, moving on to 56.
Okay, we have supplies. We simply want to add the word necessary in here. So employer agrees to let employees obtain necessary supplies or food while on duty in radio service. So just right after obtain, just the word necessary. We're just not leaving and going on field trips for the hell of it, for fun.
Which I don't think you do.
No, right.
But we just want to make sure that.
Maggie would miss you guys didn't show up at all.
Yeah.
That's where I get most of my work done.
All right. See here, Article 60. Shift selection. The district shall maintain a shift selection policy to be reviewed and agreed upon by the labor management committee. This will be a one trial for crew assignment for 2018. We would like to see this rewritten as the district shall maintain a shift selection policy to be reviewed and recommended upon by the labor management committee and to be decided on by the administration and the board of directors. This again just goes back to the committees being recommending things rather than just making decisions for management. So, you know, this is a little redundant. It's just mostly saying, hey, let's work together. But, you know, at the end of the day, we have to have managers manage.
Same as
I mean, the bottom line of this whole thing is, let's just work together. You're gonna do something, let us know what it is. We'll discuss it, with you, and we'll go from there. But just for you guys to do something and we know nothing about it, that's out of question. No more of that.
it's the same with 61.
61.
Article 61 is rewritten the same exact way.
Yes, just again, recommendations.
Reviewed and recommended by the labor management committee.
Yeah. Bring it to us, hey, this is what we want, what do you think? We're gonna say, yeah, we're gonna say, let's talk about it.
And then Article 61, basically because this is a letter agreement, we just need to make sure that it says this agreement expires December 31st, 2023.
Or 64, yeah.
I'm sorry, which one was that?
63, just because it has the old dates.
Right. I got it.
So it's just to make sure it's solid. And then, with 64, Director Stevie, you want to take that?
We're taking out, that first part of the line that says, except as limited by this agreement. So we're just gonna say with management rights, the district shall have exclusive right to manage the business and direct employees.
And that's all we got. Now I want to offer you guys an opportunity to discuss and take a short break here. How much time would you like?
20 minutes?
20 minutes? Everyone, we will recess for 20 minutes. All right, we're back from recess and we'll go ahead and get started back up. Gentlemen, did you have anything you want to discuss?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
So we accept Article 6,
Okay,
we accept 14 through 17. We accept. Giving you correct information. We request that a list be developed of what would or would not be covered.
correct. There's a little more development needed on that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Okay,
We accept the change to 42. We accept 44.
And we want to talk about that, the receipt timing and then the police federal.
Yes, we do. Okay, so, I'm sorry, going back to 42 and 44, we accept, we just have questions.
Mhm.
So, we would like to develop verbiage on the process in which the receipts are turned in.
okay,
And then the time frame that our employees could expect to be reimbursed, so they're not carrying the balance.
Develop that language and then our next meeting. I figure what we would do here is whatever, hasn't been accepted, you meet with the shop and then we'll have another session to negotiate a second time.
I don't know how official it would be, but it could be as simple as, you turn in receipts quarterly, in an envelope with your name on it. That way we know all of these receipts are that person, and then those get turned into Suzette quarterly. You know what I mean? And we
Sure.
can have either the administrative assistant do it or her assistant.
Or
Do
if,
that.
if there's an online clothing shop that we're gonna go through that has digital receipts, that might make it easier for everyone. I think, discuss, come up with some
Yes.
options and.
And we would also like to hear from you guys what items you would like, what items you believe you want included on that, it could be as much as like, hey, I really love these cargo pants, but I always have to buy 2 extra pairs for myself every year. So let's add cargo pants on there. You know what I mean? Because we supply you 2 pairs, but you like to have 4 pairs or whatever it might be, right? If there are uniform items you guys want extra of or other things that should be on the list, let's add that to the list. But you would know better than us.
Okay.
Did you say you didn't, I'm sorry, did you say you didn't want them out of pocket?
No, they would be out of pocket. We were just curious if, once the receipts are turned in, how long do you get?
Probably 1 pay period, 1 or 2. I mean, it just would depend on, obviously, there's a learning curve here
Sure.
to changing the way we're gonna do this, but I don't think that you should expect to have to wait months and months for it. I think that as soon as they get it processed, as soon as it's all processed, the next pay period that after it's processed it'll be added on.
We'll work out a process.
And it might actually be where you get a separate paycheck for that item. You know what I'm saying? That's often how it is. It's like, well, you just randomly get a paycheck for, you know, the, $200 or whatever that you spent this quarter.
And we are good with 56. With 60. 61. And, changing the dates on 63 to reflect the January or the December 31st of 2023.
All right, so let's set a date. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
On that. Those are the ones like we pretty much just accept right off the bat.
Okay.
There's some of these other ones that it's not necessarily a no, but it's things that we understand that we talked about some rewrites and things. So if we can, we got a couple more minutes to go through it.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, union representation, you guys said that you had language developed for that. For the article number 7.
I was going based on what our lawyers had talked about.
Okay.
I know Rick Berry had spoken to Mr. Hoffman, who's left, that basically the whole point behind it was that you just wanted to have union representation for personnel matters that involve, like, when if we're just discussing a personnel matter, we don't need the shop steward in there until that person is coming in for disciplinary action or anything like that.
Okay. So we would just request however you want the article to read, just send it over to us so we can review.
Okay.
Check with Rick to make sure that we're all on the same page before we accept.
So on some of this, that's,
Language.
I mean, with my list that I made here, I'm gonna make some adjustments to it. Hopefully we'll double check those adjustments and then that'll be closer to the final verbiage.
Work perfect.
Obviously with 41 and 44, it's gonna take a little more
Yes.
with both of us
Yes.
to do that, but, yeah. We'll come up with something for that Article 7. for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Article 10, we recommend just rewriting the entire article.
Okay.
To change, it's too piecemeal what we're trying to do. Let's just burn it down and start over again.
Okay.
That sounds great.
I would recommend you guys do the first draft of that.
I think it would be a good idea if you guys included then in that draft, the committees that you, like if we don't have a committee for it yet, the committees you would like to see added.
Okay.
Like that training committee. And you made notes too about the pension board of trustees and then the grants committee, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
On deferred compensation, more questions than answers. So, deferred compensation is an employee funded plan. The district does not contribute to it in any form or fashion. We were just curious why the recommendation, to essentially remove the majority of all shop members to change the plan, being as how it's just funded by these employees.
I think that's a good point.
That's a really good point.
I don't know that we knew that.
Well, yeah.
I don't know that we knew that particular side of it. I don't know that that was something we thought about. We
Well,
just saw.
Well, for instance, one of the items with this is the one where there's the vesting, correct?
No, 457.
Okay, so I got the two plans mixed up. Okay, yeah, I mean, I think that's fair.
You're probably right about that.
I mean, what do you think, AC Long and Chief Brown?
Yeah, I agree. I think, more of an employee, participation.
Okay,
Yeah,
so scratch 31.
Okay.
I think what happened is we see verbiage that cuts out the ability to manage it to manage, and we just said, hey, we're concerned about that. But if that has nothing to do with us anyway,
Okay, perfect. we would need to see the language on how you would, pause the VIVA,
Okay,
what steps would take place, where the money would go in the interim, that sort of thing.
okay. We will work with, Matt. And I'm gonna try to, because I don't want to pause this for long. I will try to contact a pension lawyer as soon as possible.
Okay.
And I think he's got one to recommend me, so it'll be,
Article 38, we decided we were gonna put a pin in that. We're gonna get, examples from other districts and see how they do their overtime calling and staffing.
sounds good.
We were discussing it as well, and it might be just that a two-tier system, like you say, seniority plus hours worked or whatever determines the list versus one or the other.
So that's the way it is now.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It might be as simple as making it one or the other, whether you do just seniority or just hours worked. Or, I mean, because a lot of places do it that way, like where they call in overtime.
I would
according
just,
to hours
yeah,
worked.
I would say, create the verbiage you want, and we'll discuss it next time.
Right, with the goal of being lessening, overtime abuse.
Sure. Okay, so we discussed 41. We're good with 42. We're good with 42.
50?
50. So, reviewing the policies prior to implementation and, the district agreeing to meet and consult with the labor management committee.
Mhm.
I don't know what the difference there is.
Yeah, I mean, let me go to 50 real quick. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I do get concerned about a labor management committee where it feels as if there is a committee just dedicated to kind of like, to me, I guess we were trying to make it a little bit more inclusive, to let the entire shop look at it. You know, to take it to Mr. Barry, you guys review it as a whole rather than the labor management committee. And then it would be recommended to us either way, but as long as honestly, article, where was it? With the recommendations of the committee, if we agree that the committees are meant to just recommend, then I see nothing wrong with changing the verbiage at all.
Would you be okay with eliminating consult with labor management committee and adding meet and consult with the shop?
Yeah, I think, what do you guys think? What do you think?
I worry about the meat part of it. Does that, I mean, right, like, for time purposes, it's not, yeah.
Real quick, if I can. So the meet and consult is basically, if you just put review in here, and this is where the issue comes in on our part, is a review basically says, and I'm not saying you do this, but it's happened out there, is review is, you have a new policy, you guys put it out, say, hey, here it is, and then you implement it. And you never, ever get to talk to anyone from the shop because, well, we reviewed it. And that's technically legal. So we put in there meet and consult because, so that means at some point, at least, we're guaranteed that you're gonna at least talk to the shop. You don't have to listen to them because it doesn't say that in there. It just says that you're gonna meet or listen to what they have to say. The reason most of the time we don't put in shop and we put in labor management committee is so that it kind of pares things down. I was talking with Matt, and this is all up to them and how they want to run that. But a lot of times, you know, you've got all those different committees, right? And if you have to, as a board, meet with every one of those committees, and that's going to take up a lot of your time, right? So sometimes what we do is we have like the labor management committee, and underneath those are several other committees, and those committees meet and do whatever they need to do. They pass it up to that one committee, and then you have one meeting with labor management guys, and you talk about all those different issues. And those labor management people, committee members from the shop, you know, they're elected, and their job is to talk to the shop. And if the shop has issues, to bring them to you, kind of like a shop steward. So it just kind of breaks down the number of people that you have coming at you and the number of meetings that you're going to have over the long.
Okay, what I'm gonna say is you made a very good point about time. Okay, and some of these policies we need to implement right away, especially if there's a problem.
Mhm.
And so if we have to just pass a
Sit on-
policy, you know, we only have up to 4 meetings a month. If we have to, and a policy like that would probably have to be discussed in open. So now we're down to 2 meetings every 2 weeks. What my concern is this limits our ability to pass a policy when we need to pass a policy. Now, I feel as if emailing it to everyone and allowing time for everyone to review it. So we send out a mass email, hey, board and administration, we're looking at this policy. And get your thoughts.
Could we
If
say
you
bring,
wanna do that, I'm just saying, man, I know from my shop, like, you know, you have 30 people emailing you.
Is there-
with their thoughts,
Well,
and it
they can
doesn't
email
always-
the shop stewards.
or, yeah,
Well,
or
that's,
could we have the shop steward then at that, so as a scenario, like she said, we email out a policy to be reviewed by the district employees. The shop steward then can bring concerns to the next open board meeting about said policy.
Or just email us
Or,
too.
or
yeah.
just email the board with those concerns or whatever, and that's one way we can move that forward in a quicker manner. I'm only concerned about the meat part just because of time constraints on everybody, really, on everybody. And like, I don't have a problem with consultation. So if we need verbiage that says review and recommend, or whatever that verbiage needs to say that acknowledges that we want to hear from you about stuff, then I'm okay with that.
What were you gonna say?
No, I'll move my hands to look. That's what it is.
Could we
I-
research verbiage
Yeah,
and
Bring some verbiage to the next meeting. We'll discuss this further.
Well, let's get off that email thing. I prefer 1 email from you, not 30.
sure,
That's
sure.
Find a
So-
way to do it that way.
So the way that it's supposed to work is that, to John's point, the labor management committee is made up of the elected union representatives and members of management being the administration. And so we sit at the table and we discuss these things, and then when we leave the room, the shop has been represented and management has been represented.
I think the best thing to do is to discuss this further with your shop and discuss this further amongst yourselves, and then maybe bring some options for verbiage. And so we can think about this a little bit further.
because I think we're on
You
the
know,
same
'cause
page.
I think we're,
actually.
until we really kind of finalize exactly what we're looking at. You hear our time constraint issues. We hear you as far as like the complications of being a shop steward. So I think the best thing is, we'll think of some ideas, you think of some ideas, and we'll come back to this.
That was 50.
That was good.
And then I guess the final one we have here is 64.
So the question is, except as limited by this agreement, is, to me, that one sentence is what holds us both parties to this document. So if it's in this document and we've negotiated it and we've come to an agreement saying, except as limited by this agreement, kind of throws that all out the window. If we just, and we have no issues with anything that's written in management rights, but if we've already negotiated it, we've already discussed it, we've already come to a consensus and signed it,
I
then
think you make a good point.
it
Well-
would be limited to this agreement.
I think the best thing to do is for us to speak to our legal on that. Let's speak to our lawyers and we'll talk about that next time. Now, we have hit our 90 minutes. Would you like to finish the meeting, or would you like to discuss this further in a future meeting?
I think we need to meet with our respective parties and come back to the future meeting.
Okay.
I feel like this is really good though, and I think we're on the same page of a lot of things. We just got to figure out how we want to word some stuff. Yeah.
I agree.
All right, so let's go ahead and set a date for the next meeting. you like
Yeah.
Thursdays?
I'm at the board's leisure,
Ooh.
not that day.
You want to do the 20th or the 27th? Nope, not the 20th.
No, go ahead, which day?
The 20th or the 27th?
Like 20th for the regular, 27th for the backup. Would that work for you guys?
I'm good with that.
I could do that.
All right.
Here's what it is.
6.
I'm sorry, for the
6 p.m. if
27th,
that's good. Oh,
I would not be available.
okay.
I can do the 20th, but not the 27th.
Well, that was the primary day. Let's all try to shoot for 20
Sure.
then.
We meet within 1 month. Would you be available Wednesday? The 26th?
I would not, I would be available the 25th or the 24th.
Okay, hold on. Wait, what's that?
So the 24th is an open meeting. I think we're gonna need to not double up. But or
Can we
we,
push it to the 4th? I mean, this is the backup.
well, since we haven't signed the protocol agreement yet, we don't technically have to meet within 1 month. But we do have a deadline of December 31st. So I'm gonna leave that up to you.
I think we're making good progress the 4th one.
As
Okay,
a backup?
okay. Anything else left to discuss before we adjourn?
May 4th is the backup.
Yes,
At 6 p.m.
6 p.m. if that works with you. All right, can I get a motion to close this special open board meeting for March 30th, 2023 at 7:31 p.m.?
A motion?
I'll second.
Can I get a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all.